It's that time of year once again. We're finally getting close to another exciting season of the Overwatch League, but there's still quite a few more weeks of waiting to do, and we've got to fill that void somehow, right? It's about time that we get into those team previews that people seemed to like last year that I made, so we can build upon the excitement for a brand new year. The How Good Is Your Overwatch League team series is back for another season. If you're new to my channel, allow for me to explain how the series works. Each video will comprise of me summarizing a specific team's off-season moves, but unlike last year, there's not going to be any sort of off-season grading system provided, as it doesn't really feel like it belongs in this kind of format to me anymore. This is a recap to catch everybody up to speed and remind the people at home what the teams are working with. After the summary, there's going to be an evaluation of said team's current roster and my take on their potential, and once we get through all of that, we'll finish with a general prediction for the place a team could finish in the overall standings in my opinion, as well as the conference they belong to. Due to this season being played on Overwatch 2 though, I will be opening up the range of places where I think a team can finish, since it's a bit difficult to tell who is necessarily going to be at the top for certain. Something else about this series to bear in mind as we kind of move through the teams is that I'm prioritizing those who we know for a fact have complete rosters first. The last thing that I feel like doing with this series is making a preview on a team that is still waiting to fill out a good bit of their roster or any sort of major positions. So if I don't get to a certain team that you really want me to cover at first, that's likely why. With all that in mind though, let's get on to the first team of the series, and it feels appropriate to start with the Shanghai Dragons, aka your defending champions. To give a general overview, most fans would agree that they are still in the title contender tier. Aside from being the reigning champs, they're also very talented, and the offseason did absolutely nothing to change that, and that's mostly because, well, it didn't really lose anything. The entire championship core, along with Who Are You, are sticking around for another season. Their starting tanks, DPS, and supports are likely going to remain the same, which obviously bodes well for this historic franchise. All they lost, basically, at the end of the day, was 2 bench players, as Molly and Develop both ended up signing with the Guangzhou Charge. But since these 2 weren't really of use anyway, Shanghai don't take any hits necessarily. To make up for this lack of backup support, the Dragons went ahead and signed former Washington Justice and Hangzhou Spark flex support, Bebe. While it definitely seems like a questionable signing given Bebe's inability to fulfill his potential these last 2 years, this is a seemingly harmless pickup on the surface. Izayaki is clearly going to be the starting flex support still, due to his MVP caliber play and flexibility, and so long as Brig, Lucio, and Mercy have relevance, Lee Jae-gun likely continues to start as well. Unless I'm missing something, Bebe should be a full-time bench player outside of any sort of double flex support meta or during instances where Shanghai wishes to rest specific players. But hey, who knows? Maybe Bebe is going to have a deeper involvement. Coach Moon's judgment has been quite trustworthy in these last couple of years, as he has turned Lip into a star, so maybe there's still hope for this multi-year veteran to thrive. But those 3 moves are basically the only player changes Shanghai made the entire offseason. They kept it short and sweet, but can you really blame them in this scenario, as they're just doing what any other championship team would do. You bring back all of the guys that helped you bring that title, and you go again and try and repeat. However, the Dragons did make what could arguably be a couple of significant personnel changes that could end up being more impactful than the things that happened on the player side. Assistant coaches Jae-Feel and Dongsu did leave the team to pursue different coaching opportunities, and they were each a part of this team from the moment they ended up starting their turnaround back in 2019. Sticking around for multiple seasons and being a part of last year's championship team goes to show that their skills and knowledge is definitely of use. This especially goes for Jae-Feel, who has vast experience coaching multiple championship level teams throughout the years, and he already found a new job in Chengdu. And while Coach Moon is still around, I think the assistant coaching position could end up being a point of concern due to how hard it will be to end up competing with Jae-Feel and Dongsu's resumes. But the Dragons are going to try their best with the 2 other assistants they had on the championship roster in Kong plus Damon, as well as a newcomer in Pavane. And Pavane is well known, as he famously coached the NYXL during their highest point of relevance from 2018 to 2019, as well as LW Blue and the 2020 Spitfire. It's worth noting though that he has not coached a team in about 2 years, since he did retire back in the fall of 2020, so it's a bit difficult to say if he still definitely has what it takes or not. But if Coach Moon and Shanghai's management see something in him, then maybe he still has something left to give. He certainly has the resume and experience needed for this job, so perhaps he'll do well. Either way, the Dragons coaching staff is certainly something to watch carefully this year since it will be a bit different. It's an underrated aspect of the game, and a few changes could lead to some drastically different results in some cases. From a general standpoint though, the Dragons took care of business efficiently. All of the players they needed back are here, which is obviously a big deal since every single guy from the championship core is arguably a superstar. From top to bottom, they are absolutely loaded. There's maybe a few questions about bench productivity, but this team already showed they don't really need a bench to go on a playoff run, so it's not a point of concern. That's pretty much everything that happened during Shanghai's offseason though, so now we can move on to a team evaluation, and we can keep this short and sweet since we literally already know this roster really well from top to bottom. They have no rookies whatsoever, and all of the people they do have been in the league for multiple years. No matter what position you want to talk about with this team, the Dragons are stacked and are in that top percentile arguably. Through offseason changes and all, they still possess arguably the best DPS line in the Overwatch League. There certainly are a couple of other teams that are right there as well that you've got to keep your eye on, but when you think about having a true MVP level player at both hitscan and flex DPS, Shanghai definitely come to mind before anybody else. Fleta and Lip are already proven, and that's the big difference maker compared to some of these other DPS lines. It gives them the edge. When you have a former regular season and grand finals MVP as your damage dealers, it's gonna be hard to compete with you. Fleta and Lip are both so dangerous, and their combined versatility is some of the best in the game. Shanghai's starting DPS absolutely slaps. It's honestly not fair. Both of them can pop off at any given moment and just completely assert their dominance, and between the two of them, they can probably cover just about every damage hero in the game. But that's not to say that the rest of this rotation doesn't do much of the same, because Izayaki and Lei Jae are some of the highest quality supports in the entire league, and what makes these two so special is that consistent improvement they've shown. In my honest opinion, they have demonstrated no clear-cut signs of peaking yet. Izayaki only entered the conversation for #1 flex support last year, and Lei Jae, while he's still one of the best main supports in the league, is only 20 years old and can learn even more. There's still plenty of room for him to continue developing, which is a horrifying thought. The only thing to really think about with the Dragons is how the tank situation goes. How will they function with only a singular tank? Will they showcase that same dominance even if Void and Fate can't play at the same time and they can't back each other up? Fate and Void gave this team absurd stability last year, and how are they going to do on their own? Are they still going to perform at that same level we're used to, or is it going to take a bit of an adjustment process? It's a tough question to answer this early on, but the good news is they're not the only ones facing this predicament by any means. This generally could be a problem for any team in the league, but specifically for those who have super amazing tank lines. So long as the Dragons don't struggle too hard to adjust, they'll probably be fine in theory at least. After all, Void and Fate are super intelligent and capable and just extremely flexible, as they both have gone through multiple systems throughout the years, so if there's any pair of tanks to trust with a new style of play, it's certainly them. Overwatch going 5v5 is a genuine concern that is perfectly fine to keep in the back of your head, but with the overwhelming talent, flexibility, coaching, and team synergy that the Shanghai Dragons possess, surely they figure things out, right? They're one of the teams to be the least concerned over here in the preseason. Even if they aren't as good as 2021, let's say, it's difficult to imagine that they fall off just because there's one less player on the field at a time. The only real concern to have, aside from maybe the 5v5 aspect, is again that coaching staff, as I talked about before. Is Coach Moon going to have a tougher time without his reliable assistants from 2020 and 2021? Who knows? The answer in my eyes is likely no, since Moon is an excellent coach who is used to adversity at this point in his career. Could going 5v5 potentially ruin Coach Moon's ability to make good game plans? I mean, I guess, but that seems a little far-fetched. And since Pavane is the only new guy on his staff, it should be fine overall. I mean, especially when considering that Pavane already has good experience, and the fact that he'll be working with the greatest talent the league has to offer. Having such an excellent roster is going to make the coaching situation a lot less scary, since you know for a fact that these guys will not only be easy to coach, but that they can also figure a lot of things out for themselves. Even with changes and all, I think that staff should remain afloat. It's impossible to tell from an outsider perspective if the loss of Dongsu and J-Field will make a significant difference, but if the Dragons truly are championship caliber like we all believe they are, then it shouldn't be a huge deal. But I suppose we will find out soon enough in like 40-something days. In the meantime, the confidence level in the Shanghai Dragons should should remain sky high. If the biggest potential issues reside in a new game and a few assistant coaching changes, you're in way better shape than a majority of the league right off the bat. That just about sums up the evaluation of the Dragons for me. They have everything that they could possibly need to be one of the best in the league yet again. So that gets me into my regular season expectations for this franchise. With how elite they are from top to bottom, I firmly believe that the Dragons will finish anywhere from 1st through 5th place in the overall standings, and in terms of the Eastern Conference, they should be no worse than 3rd place. Again, please bear in mind that I am opening up the range of places a team can finish this year due to the fact that it is a new game that could end up making things a bit more unpredictable and random. There's no way that any of us can sit here with 100% confidence and say that the Dragons will definitely be number 1 no matter what. There's no guarantee thanks to the changes, as well as other teams around the league potentially improving. But from a general standpoint, yeah, they're one of the best on paper. If you go by talent and coaching alone, there's only a handful of rosters out there that can come close to matching them, and that's exactly why I think the Dragons will finish pretty high. They likely get a fair bit of points from beating up on the other rosters from the East alone. Their biggest threat on paper is maybe like Chengdu, I'd say, maybe Solar Philly end up sneaking up, but none of them are nearly as stacked right now, and for that, they have the highest odds of winning any regional tournament that comes their way. And the same applies to any competition they have out in the West. A few teams definitely will pose a challenge to them, but with all those superstars and their crazy confidence and championship experience, you would have to imagine that the Shanghai Dragons could make a deep run during the interregional mid-season madness tournament as well. When combining all those factors, it's not hard to see the Dragons accumulating a ton of league points and being one of the top seeds come playoff time, if everything goes relatively smooth, that is. They're absolutely one of the few teams in contention for that top-tier championship contender status. Anything is possible with this being a new game and everything, but man do the Dragons look good. Between the minimal concerns, high-level players, productive offseason, and everything else that I mentioned, they are well equipped to defend their title. Now all that's left to do is sit back and see how their season unfolds. But until then, that's where we're going to leave things. The Shanghai Dragons are a super exciting and interesting team, and I cannot wait to watch them take the stage, this time physically. But maybe you feel differently. And if that's the case, feel free to give me your own evaluation of the Dragons down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe if you want to stay up to date with this series. We've got 19 teams to go, it's going to be a big playlist, a big grind, and a lot of fun, so stay tuned. And as always, thank you all so much for watching my content. I appreciate your support so much, and until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.